This is Residents in a Room, an official podcast of the American Society of Anesthesiologists, where we go behind the scenes to explore the world from the point of view of anesthesiology residents.
The ABA seemed to be like this Wizard of Oz type of organization.
How willing and how much effort you guys are putting into opening the doors to residents.
We have the ABA exam outline that we can reference.
Not just preparing for exams, but also building the clinical reasoning skills and knowledge required that show up in daily practice.
Hello, and welcome to Residents in a Room, the podcast for residents by residents. I'm Dr. Natalie Koons, and I'm the current ASA Resident Component President and also sit on the ABA Resident Advisory Group. I'm excited to be joined by a few fellow residents and fellows and by Dr. Mark Keegan, ABA's president. We're going to learn about what the American Board of Anesthesiology is doing for residents and how the ABA and ASA work together. So let's start by meeting my peers. Andrew and Sara, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Dr. Sara Saenz. I'm one of the adult cardiac fellows here at Stanford.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew Ray. I am a CA2, almost CA3 at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. I serve alongside Dr. Koons on the Resident Governing Council as your alternate delegate to the AMA RFS.
Thank you so much. Let's start with introductions. Dr. Keegan, tell our listeners about your role and your work within the ABA.
So firstly, thank you for inviting me to the Resident in a Room podcast. I'm delighted to be here and I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm an anesthesiologist and intensivist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So like you, I work a lot of nights and weekends caring for patients. I've been at Mayo for about 30 years. For the past 10 years, I've been an ABA director. Before I became a director, I was a question author and then committee member for the ABA Critical Care Medicine exam, and subsequently an applied examiner. In my time on the board, I've written and edited questions for the in-training, basic, advanced, applied, and as I've mentioned, the critical care medicine exams. For 3 years, I was chair of the assessments committee and led the task force that developed the virtual applied exam during COVID, which was a very interesting and difficult time. Through my ABA work, I've been involved in the American Board of Medical Specialties and was chair of the ABMS Ethics and Professionalism Committee. I serve or have served on multiple ABA committees and in roles such as ABA Treasurer and previously as Vice President. I'm honored to be the current ABA President, and in addition to my duties as President, I serve on several ABA committees, including the Credentialing Committee and the In-Training Exam Committee, and as an applied examiner. It's been an interesting, busy, and very satisfying decade as a director. The ABA staff really care about the organization, and many physician volunteers are talented and dedicated. And I've been impressed by everybody's desire to do their best for trainees, for exam candidates, for those in practice, for our specialty, and of course, for our patients.
Thank you, Dr. Keegan. I think many of us residents think of the ABA as the organization responsible for our exams and MOCAs. Do you think that perception is too limited? What else does the ABA do? And can you talk about the scope of the ABA's work?
So it's true that the ABA is an assessment organization. It's a major focus of our work. We, and indeed others, believe that the ABA is the gold standard for anesthesiology assessment and certification. The board administers roughly 16,000 high-stakes exams every year across initial and subspecialty certification, ultimately issuing more than 3,000 certificates per year. We also deliver low-stress, formative, and summative continuing certification for tens of thousands of ABA-certified anesthesiologists. But in addition to that, the ABA programming extends beyond the continuum of initial and continuing certification. For example, we review and adjudicate hundreds of credentialing cases every year related to training, certification, and professionalism. The ABA conducts research related to assessment innovation, evaluation of our exams and psychometric processes, and we've studied the well-being attitudes and opinions of resident and practicing anesthesiologists. We've evaluated the impact of board certification on the frequency of substance use disorders and license actions, and we collaborate with groups studying questions relevant to anesthesiology education, certification, and patient outcome. Further, we manage and maintain technical platforms that shepherd residents, candidates, and diplomates through the certification process. We coordinate the efforts of more than 700 volunteers who support assessment generation, exam delivery, and strategic initiatives. And we do our best to communicate with anesthesiologists in training, board certified anesthesiologists, and with related organizations such as the American Board of Medical Specialties, the ACGME, the ACCME, subspecialty societies, and of course, the American Society of Anesthesiologists.
Great. Thank you for that. Can you touch a little bit on the relationship between the ABA and ASA, and what does each offer trainees?
So that's an excellent question. The American Board of Anesthesiology and the American Society of Anesthesiologists are distinct organizations. We share a common goal, however, of supporting anesthesiologists and advancing patient safety, but with distinct organizational roles. The American Board of Anesthesiology is the certifying board, setting standards and assessing the knowledge and skills for certification. The American Society of Anesthesiologists is a professional society focused on education and advocacy. So the ABA sets certification requirements, and the ASA provides educational activities that help physicians meet those requirements. The ABA and ASA collaborate on initiatives like supporting early career researchers via the ABA FAIR Research and Education Grant. The ASA awards board-certified anesthesiologists continuing medical education credit for participating in the ABA's MOCA Minute. And recently, we piloted article-based MOCA Minute questions based on papers published in Anesthesiology, which is the official journal of the ASA. We collaborate formally through the ABA-ASA Collaborative Work Group, which includes physician leaders from both organizations and meets regularly to identify partnership opportunities designed to provide value across the education and career continuum. And ASA leadership helps identify and nominate candidates for the ABA board of directors. And Dr. Koons, I think you have a perspective probably in both organizations, and I'd be interested to hear that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think the ASA has catered to trainees at all different levels, from medical students to residents, fellows, early career attendings. Within the ASA medical student and resident component specifically, the ASA offers an incredible amount of resources for various topics within our specialty, including advocacy, research, innovation, global health, education, and involvement in many of the ASA committees, even as trainees, to allow our voices to be heard at the table. Through these opportunities, the ASA fosters mentorship opportunities as well as leadership positions. I think within the ABA, the American Board of Anesthesiology Resident Advisory Group was a national initiative launched to elevate resident voices, improve communication, and to better understand the resident experience as one goes through the board certification process. And through these ABA working groups, as well as the ASA Resident Advisory Group, I've had a little bit of an insight of what the ABA is really looking to gain from having residents at the table and including them in the conversation process. This idea was actually born through the ASA resident component and came to fruition about a year and a half ago. And similarly, it gives residents a voice while also being able to brainstorm ideas, present feedback, and have discussions about the goals and the visions of the ABA for trainees. Historically, navigating board certification can be kind of a difficult and challenging process for trainees. And I think this allows a lot of insight and direct line of communication within the ABA and within the leadership of the ABA to express our needs and influence how exams, such as the basic or advanced exam, and requirements are communicated to that next generation of anesthesiologists. So moving on to our next question, can you tell us more about the ABA's strategic plan and how it might shape or impact our futures?
So we take very seriously our responsibility to the patients we care for, to anesthesiologists at all stages of their careers, and to the specialty as a whole. Accordingly, as you mentioned, we developed a strategic plan to guide our organization between 2025 and 2030, but also beyond that. And our strategic plan, which is available on our website, reflects the rapidly evolving world of medicine, technological advances, and workforce needs. It helps us to remain focused on patient safety as we drive innovation and hopefully serve as a trusted partner to ABA diplomates and to other organizations that serve them, and to those who wish to become diplomates in the future who are still in training. The strategic plan has 7 strategies, more than 30 tactics, designed to transform certification to shape the future of anesthesiology. We'd like to reimagine the future of assessments. We want to develop seamless continuing certification, and we're investing in research, among other efforts. One strategy is to engage trainees and training programs early by developing an engagement plan and formative assessment tool, which we can talk about, to support knowledge and skill development. And to engage residents earlier in training, as you mentioned, we're seeking input from them and their programs on the challenges they face as learning and training evolve.
Thank you. The ABA has a resident advisory group, which I believe is a fairly recent initiative. Can you talk about what this group does and why the ABA chose to initiate a resident advisory group?
Yes, indeed. This is the resident advisory group that Dr. Koons mentioned. Now, over the years, going back quite a few years, the ABA has engaged residents in representative roles and ad hoc groups and in focus groups. But in 2025, we launched the Resident Advisory Group to formally and purposefully elevate resident voices as part of our strategic plan of engaging trainees early. As mentioned, it's comprised of 11 residents from a variety of programs and backgrounds. Meetings allow us to hear directly from those residents about their experience and how we can improve. So far, the group has contributed to resources like our new resident brochure, which includes a path to certification timeline, website updates, and new messaging. And we'll continue to engage residents to inform direction on strategic initiatives, whether they be large or small, that impact them or will impact them in the future, and to guide the development of our new assessment tool, which is going to be called Resident Reach.
That's a great segue to my next question, which is about the Resident Reach pilot program. Can you talk a little bit about what it's about and what need you're hoping to address?
So Resident Reach is a new formative assessment that will, we hope, foster supplemental learning and offer insights and feedback on residents' medical knowledge throughout training. As mentioned, we're getting input from a variety of sources, including our resident advisory group. Resident Reach is designed to stimulate resident engagement and learning. It's designed to provoke discussion both among residents and also between residents and their faculty supervisors, and to provide program directors a clearer, more ongoing understanding of residents' learning. There will be multiple item types and multiple ways to answer those items, ranging from typical MCQs to short answer questions to items that reflect topics on the applied examination. Items will reflect real clinical decision-making, hopefully provoking reflection and inform feedback during training. As I said, it's intended to spark conversation and learning between residents and attendings. It is not designed to be a question bank. Most programs rely on the in-training exam once a year for a periodic assessment or a snapshot of progress. And this is useful and much valued by programs, and that's not going away. But it doesn't provide insight into how residents are developing their clinical reasoning skills outside of exams, or it doesn't assess where they might need more support. So the Resident Reach is meant to complement this. We piloted an early low-tech version with a small group of about 50 residents last year, and we're expanding that into a larger pilot in the fall this year, with programs selected to reflect the range of training programs across the US, large, medium, small, established versus relatively new. It's still a work in progress, but we're making good progress. And it's part of our larger effort to support continuous learning and start that habit earlier in training, not just preparing for exams, but also building the clinical reasoning skills and knowledge required and that show up in daily practice.
This sounds like an incredible resource. I'm really excited to see the launch of the Resident Reach program. What kinds of resources, in addition to the timeline board certification that you had mentioned, as well as Resident Reach, does the ABA make available to residents, and how do trainees find these resources?
So, the ABA directors are anesthesiologists in practice, and we work with residents, and we recognize that residents have moved to a new city, they're integrating into new roles, often at new institutions. They're busy with clinical work and with their lives outside medicine. Residents understand that they need to study for their certifying exams, but they're also confronted with abbreviations such as ABA, ASA, ACGME, and more. They get competing demands from their programs and multiple other venues. Depending on the resident, their program, and other circumstances, There's a variability in resident understanding of the path ahead. So based on discussions with resident colleagues, it became apparent that we could do a better job communicating exactly what is required of residents to become ABA certified and to continue that certification throughout the course of their career. So as mentioned, we recently created a resident brochure to build transparency and clarity around the certification process. It includes a timeline that outlines the entire journey through training and exams. Also, we have an ABA website, and we have a dedicated section on that website that serves as an information hub and links to relevant information. So, for example, for initial certification exams, we offer targeted exam materials, including sample cases, content outlines, exam blueprints, and applied exam videos. These resources are probably underused, and I'd encourage anybody listening to go to the ABA website. There's a wealth of information there. In particular, there's a section specifically for residents. Look for the tab at the top of the homepage. Now, I'm hardly the best person to talk about social media, but the ABA does post on several social media channels to provide information about new ABA initiatives and matters relating to initial and subspecialty certification. And further, to ensure consistency and accurate messaging that aligns across programs, we're developing a program director toolkit. So both residents and program leaders will receive clear, updated information about certification. And we expect to roll that out, I think, this summer.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
So let me ask you a few questions now that I have the opportunity. First of all, what's your perception of the ABA and or the value of board certification?
I think when I started residency, the ABA seemed to be like this Wizard of Oz type of organization. I didn't really know much about it. I did know that the ABA was the organization that made you board certified in anesthesiology, and similar to medical school, entering medical school and knowing that you have to take board exams. It was an organization that administered this exam, but I didn't know much else about the ABA until getting involved with the work that I have done through the ASA, as well as learning more about the organization and meeting many board examiners that work at my institution. I think my perception of the ABA now falls onto a few different pillars. The first one being professional validation and credibility. The ABA board certification process and this formal confirmation that you have achieved competency in anesthesiology, and that requires passing your board exams, including the basic, advanced, applied exams, and mastery of this kind of broad knowledge base, readiness for independent practice, and recognition by your peers, your employers, and even your patients that you are a board certified anesthesiologist. And this can feel like a pretty big milestone in the transition from being a resident or a fellow to a fully qualified anesthesiologist. The second pillar I have of the ABA is career opportunities. I think board certification is viewed as that milestone for becoming a board certified anesthesiologist, but then that offers you essential accreditation for joining a private practice group, academic appointments, fellowship opportunities, and even insurance participation. Residents, I feel like, often perceive this certification as prestigious and more professional. And in competitive job markets, being board certified or even board eligible is considered crucial. Another pillar that I think about when I think about the ABA is commitment to quality and lifelong learning. And I think the ABA emphasizes continuing education, quality improvement, again, education around patient safety, and the maintenance of this certification process can be encouraging to young physicians as we're making our career pathways for advancements in the specialty. Again, I think the ABA, including residents in conversations about board certification and communicating with programs earlier on about how the board certification process happens, as well as the resources available to trainees in their residency and in their fellowship, is important because it allows the mystery behind the organization and the board exams to disappear. And now trainees are being invited to have a voice at the table, which I think is incredible. And even the few residency advisory group meetings that I've been a part of really focuses on the feedback from the residents and from the trainees And so we really do have the power to make an impact in the ABA, which I'm very excited for and very thankful for.
So I'd love to follow up on a couple of points. Thank you very much for those. I think over the years, the ABA really has made a definite effort to be more approachable, to be more interactive, to communicate better, to avoid the behind the curtain Wizard of Oz type scenario. We've published on our examination processes. We're transparent in how we score them, for example, how we develop them. We've published research related to board certification. So I think we're genuinely trying to interact more with both residents, fellows, and diplomates, and those in the examination process. Also, speaking of the examination process, it's a privilege for me to be an anesthesiologist, and I'm proud of the rigorous training and certification process I went through to become an ABA certified anesthesiologist. Now, as you well know, we anesthesiologists need to pass multiple examinations and multiple formats. Standardized oral examinations are conducted by several other medical specialty boards. We've been doing them for decades. We led the way with the development of an OSCE to evaluate domains that the oral exam could not, and other boards have now adopted these testing strategies. So it's really quite an arduous journey to get through residency after medical school and get through the exam hurdles. And we want the imprimatur of the ABA to be an ABA diplomate really means something special. And therefore, our examination process is rigorous, and anybody who gets through those processes has achieved something really great, as you mentioned, and is a career milestone. Let me ask you another question, if I may. Is there something you wish the ABA offered residents like you, and not necessarily how you interact with what we have right now, but anything we would also provide to you in an ideal world, recognizing we don't live in an ideal world, unfortunately?
I can touch on that one. So one of the areas of opportunities that I've discussed with my residency program, as well as residents at other residency programs throughout the country, is this area of opportunity of intraoperative learning. And so we have the ABA exam outline that we can reference in terms of for studying for our exams. But I think one of the things that we could improve upon from a residency standpoint would be that intra-op teaching portion. And so when we talked about the resident reach program, I think that's a great opportunity for attendings and program directors to look at that and use that to help, as you were talking about, elaborate or strengthen our critical reasoning and clinical reasoning skills.
So I think I understand and take your point, and I work in a large academic center myself, while recognizing that there are many smaller centers and private practice groups, and residents are throughout the country in different venues. I think we have to think about the programmatic level and the ABA level, and I think a lot of the intraoperative teaching, for example, is clearly done by attendings and senior residents in the institution in the operating room at the program. And I think we have tried to stimulate that intraoperative teaching by introducing the resident reach, which will hopefully throw some ABA relevant exam topics, get them in the mix in the residency program, and maybe stimulate discussion, whether that be in the lounge, whether that be intraoperatively, or whether it be at journal club or other venues. So we're doing our best to try and stimulate that, recognizing that the programs also need to do their part in that regard. So has this conversation changed your perception of the ABA? And I recognize that some of you have already had some involvement with the ABA, but for those who are listening, is there a change of perception based on this conversation, or do I and we need to do an even better job of communicating what we have intended and what we would like and how we can help you?
Kind of piggybacking off Dr. Koons' discussion earlier, I think my initial perception of the ABA, like many residents, is this organization that administers our tests and our oral exams and maintains the standard, but we don't get much feedback or just open discussion with the ABA. And I think this conversation, it just goes to show how willing and how much effort you guys are putting into opening the doors to residents and continuing that conversation and really meeting us where we are and where the field is and trying to provide all of the tools and resources possible to get us ready and to get the next generation of anesthesiologists ready for the challenges that are coming, especially with AI and just the changing landscape of anesthesia in general. I think overall, this conversation, especially with the resident reach program and as well as some of the other things, it just really has opened my eyes to how transparent and how innovative of an organization the ABA is, and how much you guys have the best interests of residents and the future of anesthesia at heart. And I really appreciate the time and energy and willingness to be transparent with us.
So thank you for your nice comments. Let me say that all ABA volunteers, whether they be question authors or committee members or oral examiners or directors, are practicing anesthesiologists. And we're, at least I hope we are, reasonable people. And we recognize the struggles that diplomates in practice face and the struggles that trainees face. And I think we're hoping to make things better for everybody, to advance the highest standards of the practice of anesthesiology for all, to deliver better care for our patients. And we recognize that at times we don't get it exactly right, but we're hoping to be able to iterate to get things better. I don't make any apologies for the rigor of our examinations. I think that is the strength of the ABA, and we are primarily an assessment organization, and long may it be so. But we also do a variety of other things. There's also a little bit of dichotomy about education versus assessment, and we lean much more on the side of assessment, while recognizing that the programs and others can especially deal with educational matters. Being an anesthesiologist is a privilege. It's a satisfying career, but it's also a difficult and challenging profession. And we recognize that residents face many obstacles in their journey to practice. We want them to get through initial certification, maybe subspecialty certification. And when they become board certified anesthesiologists, we want to continue a partnership with physicians to provide seamless, useful support so physicians can remain certified and deliver high quality care throughout their careers.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you, Dr. Keegan, for sharing your exceptional leadership experience within the ABA and ASA, as well as your knowledge. And thank you to the ABA and the ASA for allowing residents and fellows and trainees to be a part of these conversations. I think it's so important that we are heard in decisions that are made, and you allow an outlet for these conversations to happen. So thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Ray and Dr. Saenz for joining this conversation. I know you both are busy having resident schedules and fellow schedules, so appreciate taking the time. And thank you to our listeners. We appreciate you tuning in to Residents in a Room, the podcast for residents by residents. Come back again soon.
Hello, ASA. I'm Dr. Patrick Guillaume, your ASA president, and this is the Monday Morning Minute. First, several state-level wins are tied to ASA's partnerships with our state component societies, including no new opt-out states, affirmation of anesthesiologist-led care, and Oregon and Utah enacting laws preventing insurer anesthesia time limits. Next, National Women's Health Week was May 10th through 16th. Our active support included the ASA Monitor article, Physician Health is a Workforce Imperative, authored by several members of our Committee on Women Anesthesiologists. And CWA member Dr. Jeanette McVeigh recorded a video about how anesthesiologists care for mothers during labor and delivery. And last, ASA representatives met with staff leading the Trump administration's new Great American Recovery Initiative to discuss opportunities for collaboration in addressing substance use disorder and advancing safer pain care. Well, that's it for now, and I hope you'll follow us on your favorite social media channels and check out my weekly Monday morning outreach.
For more detailed and timely information, don't miss Dr. Guillaume's Monday morning outreach email delivered exclusively to ASA members' inboxes every Monday at 5 a.m. Eastern. Protect your life and your practice with ASA's member-exclusive insurance program, covering everything from medical malpractice and health insurance to life, disability, dental, vision, travel, and even pets. ASA Insurance gives you peace of mind for every part of your life. Learn more and explore your coverage options today. asainsurance.com. Join us for Residents in a Room, where we'll share timely info, advice, and resources designed to help residents succeed in residency and beyond. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or visit asahq.org/podcasts for more.